We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Good morning, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Ray. That is the professionals with Stu and Mitch. Morning, chaps.
Morning, Steve.
Morning. How are you doing?
All good. Early start this morning. Stu has business to complete, so we don't mind switching the show. And I'm sure most of you who like to watch later will catch up and enjoy what we've got to say over the next hour. Good result, lads. Let's talk about the positives. Newcastle United, and Fulham played yesterday, and Newcastle coming out 2-0 winners. I'd predicted a win myself, which I think most of us had on the channel this week, and not at our best, Mitch. It has to be said, but still managed to get a 2-0 win into the fifth round. Was it only the second time in 18 years we're into the fifth round, and that in itself is great, and it gives us a well-timely boost after what's been a difficult week, I think, for us all.
Yeah, I think after a difficult period as well, and you're right, the match wasn't the best match in the world. However, don't be fooled by Fulham's manager whinging yet again, suggesting that they're the only team trying to create something. Well, if that was the case, why did we have 6 shots on target and you only had 2? It's sort of using stats to tell a story, which is trying very hard to paint a different way. It wasn't the greatest game. It wasn't the easiest to watch. But the whole point of the cup competition is you win next round, and those wins come however we can grab it. It's a clean sheet. That's a good boost for the back four and the keeper. And I thought Dubravka was certainly one of his better performances again of late on the night. And we didn't look uncomfortable, but we weren't as comfortable as we could have been. I think is probably the way to put it.
Yeah, through the next round, Stu, I think we all agree on that. It's not how you do it. You've got to do it, and this is our season really. We could still finish in European place. I did groan and moan at some of the comments made by some of the people covering the game last night, saying that this is all we had left. We're 6 points of a European slot, but for a trophy, this is our last chance this season, and we want to stay in it.
Of course we do. We want to go and win it, and hopefully the next few days there's an addition or two, and the injured players start returning. We've said it before, we could finish the season with a rattle. But talking about last night's performance, I think it was workmanlike, wasn't it? A few of the players were below par, but the resilience seemed to be back. like thou shalt not pass, and that was good to see. And as Mitch said there, Dubravka made a couple of saves that were really, really important to us. And I'll give you an example. I know you mentioned the manager just there, Mitch. They both asked the same question of what they thought of the referee Gerard Gillette's performance, where Silva said it was really bad. There was error made for both goals. And then Eddie Howe was asked about the ref's performance, and he says, Gillette, the best a man can get. I'll let you take it. So I think what struck most people during the game, especially the first half hour, was the imbalance on the left side. And it did leave Dan Burn exposed. And I think he got a lot of grief for it. And when he's 2-on-1, what's he meant to do? And he's got long legs, but he can't spread them that far. So it was quite clear, even to Eddie Howe, because he swapped mightily with Longstaff, because I thought Sean Longstaff looked lost playing that role. He's not comfortable with it, but you understand he'll do anything for the team, and that's why he's playing it. So for me, that's an area that needs to be improved in the coming days. But it was good to see the two local lads get the goals. I thought the fans were amazing last night. It was like a proper old school crowd, and everyone was up for it. And again, backs to the walls with the transportation issues and stuff like that. It just shows that when Newcastle fans get together and stick together, they are the best in the land by a country mile. And I also thought the interview Dan Burn gave after the game, I thought he was really good. He was honest. He admitted the performance wasn't excellent, and that they are waiting for players to come back in, and they're looking to kick on. So ultimately, before the game started, if someone says you'll be in the 5th round of the Cup and you've beat a Premier League side away with a clean sheet, I don't think many would have turned that down. So fair play to them for getting through come hell or high water. Fantastic that they're through. They can't play swashbuckling football every week, but it's a step in the right direction and a much needed step at that.
Yeah, Chip, as you're right as well. He says, I think Fulham only had one real shot on target. Yeah, they were shot shy. They were shot shy before the game. It was mentioned as well in the pre-match build-up. You know, they're struggling to find the back of the net. The strikers who were doing that early on in the season aren't doing it now. So, you know, from our perspective, you know, we probably played Fulham at the right time, especially after the hard, you know, semi-final second leg exit that they had midweek as well. It certainly had an effect on them. And, you know, we're a bit of a bogey team for Fulham, and long may that continue. You know, other notable talking points from last night, Shearer in the away end, Mitch, I've got to be honest, you know, when you see the players, ex-players in the away end, I get it. People are going, well, he hasn't got 20 loyalty points, etc. But you know what? You know, it's not about that. I mean, the Sunderland game, I thought it was a nice touch seeing Solano, you know, and Nobby, Solano, Shola Amiobi, Ryan Taylor in the away end. Sheffield United, of course, John Beresford was in the away end, and now Alan Shearer, off his own steam, it has to be said. You know, he decided to go there. Looking around as well, I mean, I know Alan quite well. I know his circle quite well. He was with his daughter, and he was with, you know, he was with his daughter and one of her mates and somebody else. But there was no like. This wasn't like Mike Ashley in the away end at Wigan Athletic all them years ago. He wasn't surrounded by security and club people. He was on his own, and you know, I thought it was great. I thought it sent out a great message, and it's been received in the right way, and the fans loved it.
Look, Shearer in particular has a deep connection to the club, but so many of those other players you've mentioned, the ones who aren't Geordies by birth, the club has such an effect on them. They become adopted Geordies, and the fact that they're comfortable to go into the weekend and not have airs and graces and not have security surrounding them says a lot about their relationship with the club and the fans. And it's the kind of thing I think the club should be fostering more and using more, and getting closer to certain players and making sure that they're happy to come and do exactly what Shearer did himself, but also happy to come to do pre-match stuff in the suites and in the boxes. They're making a big deal about wanting to make corporate, you know, a bigger bang for your buck. Well, having people like that around at every bar is part of that, and we've discussed this many times before. And I think it's one of these things. Yes, you love to see it, but It's a kick seeing Nobby and Ryan Taylor and what have you in the away end as well. But last night was he looked like he had a good time, and the team didn't let him down and didn't let us down. We got the result. That's all you need in a cup. Let's progress and do it with a real good spring in my step.
Yeah, somebody just mentioned as well, Dave, Shea going to Saudi too. Al Walid was part of that, of course. But yeah, Shearer on the terraces, first time since '85, Stu.
I think it was someone just mentioned in the chat there that if anyone doesn't need loyalty points, it's Alan Shearer, isn't it? The club's record goal scorer, and it shows that he is a fan, and that's passed on to his children. And he was very complimentary about the atmosphere, and rightly so. And it'd be good if he did it more often. He could have easily wanged himself a VIP pass up somewhere else in the ground, but he wanted to be in amongst it, and it just shows he hasn't forgot his roots. And fair play to him. Hope he does it more often.
Yep, El Jordio got in early with this one. He says, first question, well, it's more of a request. Can we observe a minute's silence for Herr Klopp? He led a great life of mourning and whinging. He's finally hit the ceiling that he was on about. Yeah, unbelievable. It's been like a death, really. I mean, some of the stuff really has been incredible. I mean, it was, on the Amigos, I was joking on about it, but I mean, it's just completely over the top. Isn't it, Mitch?
On the Amigos, once you start talking about it, you finally snapped. It's like, it's not dead. And you're quite right. The way they're going on it's ridiculous. Would they go on about any other manager the same way?
A free Klopp tribute poster in the special Daily Mail Liverpool edition, Mitch.
Brilliant. Yeah.
He's just walking. Yeah. He's resigning from the club.
He's literally resigning from the club. And so, what's Graham Souness commenting on it for? Yeah, me. Anyway, it just seems to be a real odd outpouring.
Yeah.
About a football manager leaving his position. It's as simple as that. Simple as that.
It's as simple as that. Yeah. I mean, Stu, look, there's no doubt he's been a revelation at Liverpool since he arrived, but it's just completely over the top for me.
Of course it is. He's had a lot of money to spend, but he don't take away from the fact that he has been a great manager. He's just a very unlikable person, isn't he, with his attitude? But I think all this with the press is partially to blame because there's no transfers to talk about. And then, we've got something we can latch on to here. And it's been, you hear slow news day, slow news week, but for the Hacks, it's been the slow news month. And this is normally when they can make the money with the transfer links, and there's been nothing. But for starting having 3-page pullouts and stuff like that, it's just so over the top. It's pathetic.
Yeah, it is. Morning, lads. We're into the next round. An away win. We won in the green away strip. Alan Shearer in the away end with the fans and an nufc Matters podcast on a Sunday morning. Happy days. I'm glad you're happy, Jason. Have a good day. Black armbands for the fans forum tomorrow night for Klopp, Steve, says Chippers. It's a wonder they didn't do it yesterday. Okay, and moving on to things which, were quite apparent, I think, to everybody yesterday. Lots of questions coming in the chat about this. Sutty says, what's your thoughts on how saying that Miggy's picked up an illness and Jamal has a slight injury? I don't believe him. I think deals are being pushed through for them to depart. And Albert Mooney, which is connected to the same question, really. Does anyone else get the feeling there's a disconnect between Eddie and those above at the club? It was very awkward post-match press conference last night. He said he would close the window now. And did the lads think Lascelles and Almiron missing was a coincidence, says Chipper. And Neil Calvert on the same lines. Do you think Miggy was really ill or was just kept out of the firing line to facilitate his transfer to Saudi? It's always going to cause controversy when players are missing, especially around the transfer deadline day, and especially when they have been linked with a move away. Is there plans afoot, first and foremost, Mitch? And is Eddie as disconnected as some of the fans seem to think this morning?
I think that's a very, very good question. Because let's be honest, I think I'd quite like to play a hand of poker against Eddie because he doesn't have a good poker face. My issue is this all just a big pantomime? And if so, why? What we're achieving with it? Playing the don't have any money card repeatedly, and I want to keep my squad together repeatedly if he knows stuff's going on behind the scenes to have some ins and outs. We don't need it. It's extra theatre that is just agitating and causing angst amongst the fan base more than anything else. Or are we genuinely witnessing a public disconnect between Eddie Howe and other people in the club? And if that's being allowed to happen in public, why is it being allowed to happen in public? I find his conference after the game yesterday was awkward. I think that's a very good word to use for it. But is it awkward because he's struggling to keep pretense up? Or is it awkward because he genuinely doesn't know what's going on? Or is it awkward because he's not happy and he does know what's going on? And they're three different scenarios, very different scenarios. And here we are playing detective work to try and work out what is and isn't the case.
Stu?
Well, for me, Eddie Howe, I think he gave a bit away yesterday when he was asked about Miggy. He says, "Look, I'm not updated every hour," and he seemed to snap. And it was very unlike him. You know, you could see he was not comfortable with the question and he had to pause before he gave his answer. But if he's saying he's not updated every hour, that indicates that there's something moving or something is happening. And I wouldn't be surprised at all. As I said last week, I know Trippier had been in Munich and I knew that he was open to the move. But I think Eddie Howe's won that battle. I think he won the battle where he says we need to keep him. He's instrumental. He's pivotal, not just on the pitch, but in the squad of players, behind the scenes, and the training and everything else, leading by example. And it would send the wrong message out. So I think he won that battle. But read between the lines, it looks like you say you've got to sacrifice someone else. And if that's to be Miggy to allow us to have more money to go and spend on areas that are more pressing, then that's football. That's what we have to do. I haven't been Miggy's biggest fan. I don't think anyone could question his commitment and his work rate, but he's on the pitch to deliver, and he can infuriate at times with his inability to use his right foot to take the player on. It seems to like shorten the size of the pitch, but for every good point there's a bad point, and every bad point there's a good point. But you've got to ask yourself honestly, is that a position that we could use an upgrade in to advance up the table? And of course the answer is yes. So if Miggy is to go, I think there could be news in the next 24 hours because they're going to have to move fast and get someone else in to replace him. But you've now got, like, it's not Jurgen Klopp style, but there's now vigils on Twitter about how great how great Miggy is. But if he was to be replaced with a Rafinha or Morgan Gibbs-White, for example, would anyone complain as much? And that's what's the same thing happened last year with Alan St-Maximin. I don't think anyone can say that Gordon hasn't had a bigger impact on the team than what ASM did. So sometimes people latch on to certain players. We have our own favourites, etc. And it's sad to see them go, but we can't keep all the good players. And for Eddie Howe, yeah, I love him. He's big part of the team. He said that about Kieran Clark. He said that about John Joe Shelby. He said that about Chris Wood. He'll say that about everyone. What's he meant to say? No, we don't really like him. We're trying to get rid of him. He's going to be off tomorrow. You know, so he has to defend it in a way that's understanding that the rest of the players will be either watching an interview or will watch it back. And he has to be protective of the group in a whole. And me, I think the sacrificial lamb in this window looks like it will be Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly building up momentum as we'll get closer to the transfer window closing. Is it going to be a case, though, if Miggy doesn't go, that, you know, Newcastle fans, you know, are going to just celebrate the fact that we didn't let anybody go, Mitch? Is that a reason to celebrate?
I don't think it is, because we know Eddie needs help in midfield. One more yellow card for Bruno, and we'll see just how much help he needs in midfield, even with players returning from injury. So I think we do need to see some sort of churn in this window, even if it's one in, one out, just to refresh the squad a little bit in the way that, and he needs that help. The Miggy situation I find odd, because he's everybody's scapegoat, and now a lot of people are suddenly saying, "Oh, but don't sell him." Well, make your mind up, because 3 weeks ago you were chastising him for not having a right foot. That schizophrenic nature of the fan base kicks in again when the sign a player, but not that one. It's frustrating. And I get it, we're all a little bit frustrated. We can see where the squad needs improved. Given another wide option, be that to have an alternative such as Barnes on the left and Gordon on the right, plus one other player who would come in and work wide. Now Murphy's back and put a fair shift in the first half. His finish for the goal that was offside was superb. He's not frightened to hit the ball these days. So, could we say he's delivering similar to what Miggy is, and therefore we've got more options now, and therefore once Barnes is back, we've got options there, and therefore we can look at strengthening the centre mid, because that's definitely, for me, where we need an extra body.
Would you agree with Mitch on that, Stu?
Yeah, of course. I also agree with what Sooty says there as well. We said it last week that the lineup yesterday would have been very telling of where the squad's going. For that reason, you wouldn't risk injuring someone. The thing for me is the left side is the thing that, and obviously, like your left side midfielder is, to me, it's crucial, or at least someone else, another body in midfield, a capable body. But the closer you get to the window closing, the more desperate you become, and that's where you get the knee-jerk reactions. But when getting back to what Eddie Howe was asked about Miggy, he seemed to be thoughtful, evasive, and then as if he was trying to remember what is the company line I've got to say here. But he was more affirmative with the answer on Lascelles. He says groin injury. Yes, he has got a groin injury, as if he was saying, "Well, look, this one's real. I can't convince you about the other one, but this one's definitely true." I don't think they'd let another centre half go without thinking they've got someone else to come in, because that would leave us light in 3 areas instead of the 2 that we're currently light. And if we take the fact that at the moment Isaac's our only fit striker, but I think in the summer there's going to be a lot of changing, and it'll change for the better. The squad does need an overhaul. It's needed it for a while, and they've tried to implement it as carefully as they can. But now with people running out the end of the contract, I'll give you an example. Left back. Is Dan Burn committed? Has he done an excellent job? Yes. Is there better left backs out there? Yes. But in our squad alone, we've got 8 people, or on our books, we've got 8 people who can play left back. You've got Burn, Target, Hall, Trippier can play there, Livramento can play there, Dummett can play there, Ritchie can play there. And then the man that everyone's forgot is Jamal Lewis, who was at Watford on loan. That's 8 people in one position. So we could easily get rid of 3, 4, or 5 of those, and even if it's just create an extra salary, there's an extra 40, 50 grand a week to go to Joe Linton, which keeps him happy, which means we don't have to spend a huge amount of money on another midfielder or another 2 midfielders, as that would be the case. So there's a lot of juggling to be done, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes, but I'm not disappointed with how Eddie Howe answers questions. I think he does it right, and he has to show he's disappointed to the powers that be. If he's not a nodding dog, he's just not going to say like Churchill, "Oh yes" to everything. "Oh yes," just to keep them happy. He's wants the best for the team, and he does show his loyalty. You see now, there's people like Hendrick, Fraser. We know them all. We've been through the whole squad. It does need root and branch, and there's a nucleus of players there that we need to keep, and then start advancing from there. So things are going to get better, and they'll get better a lot quickly. I think come August, our squad will be Champions League challenging depth, and that's what we've needed, the depth, because we've got it on paper. When everyone's fit, we've got an 11, possibly a 13 or 14 that's capable of doing that week in, week out. But we need a 20-plus squad that is capable of doing it. And this is where we said, I think it was on Wednesday, when you have the likes of Dan Burn and Sean Longstaff on your bench rather than starting, that means they've got better players in that position, which means as a club we are advancing, and that it will happen. You can tell from all the sound bites that we've had from the board, the CEO, etc. They're determined to make it happen. You know, their reputations are on the line as well, and from the documentary that was in the summer there, the chairman himself, he wants to be number one and he won't rest until he is. And if these are the rules, we'll play by them, but they'll get there. Just they can't do everything at the same time, and that's what we have to understand as fans.
Yeah, okay, I would agree with that. Lots of comments coming in as always, and Albert was on first. He says it's our chronic lack of pace in midfield that is the concern. Looked like they were playing in Dr. Martin's last night. Johnny Ola says very disappointed Hall isn't getting a chance. We'll come on to that after the yards. In fact, disappointed with our substitutions in general. No wonder the starting 11 are knackered. Morning, Rich. He says, morning, lads. Agree with Stu on Miggy. We've all known that we've needed a quality upgrade for Miggy for 18 months, realistically. His purple patch last season gave a state of execution. Yeah. Gary says, what does Churchill say, Stu?
He's heard it before. He'll have to rewind it, won't he?
Is it just me, or does anyone else think Craig hopes to become the prophet of doom, says Craig. Like he can't wait to give us bad news. I guess he's only doing his job. He's got some good connections. That's what has to be said about Craig. And Rich Story says, as a winger like ASM, you need assists. If you're not scoring, Gordon and Barnes, when fit, they both have end products. Some good points coming through. Keep them coming for the next half of the show. Going to have a quick break for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract, free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website, mrvickies.co.uk, or drop them an email, info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. It is the professionals. Just a big shout out to the Newcastle United Scotland supporters event that's going on in Dundee on the 24th of February. Tickets from 075 9639 3387. And it is an evening with Nobby Solano. Get yourself along. Tickets start at £35. And a big night coming as well with Rob Lee at the City Hall. I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow night on the Fans Forum. Okay, welcome back. Plenty of questions coming in. Plenty.
Before crack on, Steve.
Yeah,
quick
go on.
one off Twitter. Quick one off Twitter, just to add to the Klopp outpouring.
All right.
Somebody's tweeted, "Who is Klopp? To the blind, Klopp is the light. To the hungry, Klopp is bread. To the sick, Klopp is the cure. To the lonely, Klopp is company. To the sad, Klopp is joy. For the poor, Klopp is treasure. For me, Jurgen Norbert Klopp is everything." Dear God, it's a club. It's a club.
We do show both sides to the argument. Gary Foxwell says, "I don't understand how you think it's over the top. I don't like the bloke, but if we had him and he had won what he has here, we would have done exactly the same."
No, that's a fair point, but it's the national press that are doing it.
I was going to say, we would have.
Yeah,
but
the Liverpool fans,
the national press wouldn't.
But like I don't think we were that bad when Keegan left. I know he didn't win anything, but the way he lifted the region and everything else, he still got zero status. But we're more understanding, and it's as if it's like they've just been relegated or something, or the club stopped to exist. It is over the top. So I get your point that if like, let's say on a positive side that Eddie Howe wins the FA Cup and then next year he wins the Europa Cup and then the year after he wins the Premier League and then decides he's leaving, we would be devastated, we'd be gutted, but you wouldn't get the national press doing 3-page pullouts for him.
No.
This for me, it goes back to it's linked tenuously, I suppose, but with the abuse that we get from certain journalists, and there was another one which I won't name, banging on again this week. So there's about 4 or 5 of them that have made it their, I suppose, their profession now to criticise all things Newcastle, and they hide behind human rights. It's nothing to do with human rights. I've said it before. It's personal. The geographical position, they're all in the northwest hub of covering Liverpool, Man City, Man United, and they don't want to move from there. And if and when we become the powerhouse that we are, if they want to keep the title as Northern Senior Correspondent or whatever title they've got, they'll have to move to Newcastle. And that's something that doesn't appeal to them. So they'll do as much as they can to try and derail us. And they just say there, you've got people like Craig Hope. He'll ask the challenging questions, but that's his job. His job's to ask challenging questions and report both sides of it. But he's a Newcastle fan, So I think if you watch his podcasts, you can see he supports the club, but he's got every right to. He probably says no different to what we would in the pub, But he's just got an audience to say it to, and he's, as Mitch and myself know, he's privy to some information that he doesn't share, and so. You've got to praise Craig Hope, but he hasn't been banging on about Jurgen Klopp and how terrible it is. Right? He's been a great manager, fine. But to me, did he achieve all what Brian Clough did? I don't think so. With the size of the clubs and things like that, and Clough didn't get 3-page pull-out posters and stuff like that. So it is over the top, but I still think it's just because there's nothing else to talk about. It becomes a headline in the UK football world.
Yeah, that would probably be part and parcel of it. I think it's just a national outpouring of grief, which is what it amounts to. That's probably got me a little bit, up at height about the situation. But we'll move on. Hopefully, the press and the national press do. Carlisle Tuna says, "For Eddie is realistic and he knows how to deal with uncertainty. Only thing I would like him to improve on is his game management. Could have made changes yesterday to save legs." Jimmy Watt says, "Good morning. What's going on with Lewis Hall? He didn't come on again when all of us thought Eddie would give him a run out at the end." And Johnny Ola says, "I'm very disappointed Hall isn't getting a chance. In fact, disappointed with our substitutions in general. No wonder the starting 11 are knackered." So again, game management, in-game management, lack of substitutions. Lewis Hall not getting a chance, Mitch. It's it's not just one person saying it this morning. There's the 3 examples.
And I think we've all been talking about it on Matters in one way, shape, form or another for the last 6 weeks at least. We've asked about Hall. We had a long discussion a couple of weeks ago about Hall, and we still don't seem to be any further forward with him in terms of introduction into the team or use off the bench. You then look at timings of substitutions and what positional changes he makes. And he does seem to rely heavily on whatever starting 11 he sends out. Maybe that's the way he likes to work it. Maybe he feels that making too many changes disrupts the flow of the game and disrupts the flow of the team. But it does seem to be odd when people are coming down with injuries and are worried about minutes in people's legs, not to maximise the amount of substitutions you can make and bring people in to give people just 10 minutes here or there.
Yeah. But I'm with Eddie. How I can understand why he doesn't. This might go against public opinion, but why change for the sake of changing? And he hasn't got the impact players that the squad, when everyone's fit, would have. He hasn't got like a Harvey Barnes to come off the bench. So with that, I think he looks at, he's tried and tested, trusted, I suppose, for want of a better word, and thinks, right, I know what I'm going to get from Matt Ritchie, for example, but do I know what I'm going to get from Lewis Hall? And you've got the argument, well, unless you play him, you're not going to know. But when you're winning 1-0 in a FA Cup tie away from home, you need to go. If he's looking behind him, right, I know what this person's going to give us, and he'll follow my instructions to the letter. Whereas, again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So I get why people are questioning why he's not playing, but to me, I just trust Eddie Howe to make the right decisions. And if he feels he's worthy and capable of starting a game, and he's going to give a better performance than the one that's in front of him currently, then he'll play him. And if he thinks that he's good enough to replace him, then no. But I've got no complaints of Tino Livramento coming off the bench. I think most of it came from when Ritchie came on, wasn't it? It's, well, why is he coming on in holes there? So what you do, you take Miley off and to replace him with another young lad. Yeah, there's technically you could say he's fitter and things like that, but he is more prone to make a mistake at that age, where sometimes you've got to revert to experience and go with what's trusted. Things might change as the season goes on. We know you could see us starting, like say, once people come back and we start 3 or 4-0 up. Let's give them 20, 30 minutes and blend them in that way, blood them in. But I don't see the disappointment of not playing them last night. I can understand why he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Lewis Hall is somebody who, certainly has promise, and it's an expensive signing in the grand scheme of things with the way FFP is for us. I get it. Eddie's got to be happy with him. He's got to be somebody who, he wants to play. But we have heard his explanation more than once in press conferences, and that is that, he needs to get to the level that we want him at in certain ways, and certain things that he's doing quite clearly aren't what Eddie Howe wants to do. So I guess a lot of it will come down to how the player feels as well, how he feels about, staying at Newcastle, and not getting an opportunity. He came here for more game time. He hasn't got it. So it will be interesting. It's a one to watch, that certainly. C. Dan Smith says, Klopp's taken Liverpool, its team and its fans in the area to his heart. He's a very socially aware man and understands the struggles of the ordinary people in the area, and he is a man of the people. Newcastle fan, of course, C. Dan Smith, but that's it's a good point, well made. Have we actually signed Hall, or is it a loan with an option to buy? My understanding was that we're going to buy him, aren't we?
My understanding was it was a loan with an obligation.
An obligation, not an option. Yeah.
But Eddie seemed to suggest that there were still conditions that had to be met. So it might not happen. So don't know what the actual situation is. It's a
bit of a head scratcher, isn't it? It's a bit of a head scratcher. So I guess we'll find out at the end of the season. Pontmag says Lewis Hall's a class player. He knocked out our right wing twice in 2 matches. I had 8 starts for Chelsea last year. Chelsea Academy Player of the Year. Yeah, there's definitely as Steve Bruce said about Joe Linton, there's a player in there. David McLeod says, with the lack of signings coming in, do you think there is more to it? And will Eddie be there next season? Which takes us neatly to what Neil Calvert said earlier on. Playing devil's advocate, could be a case they don't want to back out because of the nature of this season we've had. Possible managerial change in the not too distant future. Now, this, I don't want to go down the levels of speculation here, but it's a question Neil's asked. I don't think it's a case of not backing Howe. I just think it's I personally think it's just FFP. We are hampered by FFP. We spent £300 million, haven't we, on players in the first 2 years of transfer windows, and something's got to give eventually when you're not selling players, and that's one thing we haven't done, with the exception of ESM. We haven't sold players, Mitch.
True, but again, we just don't know what the real picture is. I will be disappointed if Eddie's not given some help in this window, just simply because it's not a good look. It makes people ask those kind of devil's advocate questions and see how I had on. If you're not prepared to back him, is that because you're not prepared to back him in the long term? And that's more unrest and muddies the waters even further and causes a little bit more chaos, which we're really good at, the internal struggles and the internal angst. It always looms large and probably still will do for another few years yet. But yeah, I'd be disappointed more than anything else just because of the message it sent out publicly.
Stu?
I'll take it a bit further. I think it'll be professional suicide if they don't back him this window. And we've given many reasons over the last few weeks why. And even just the prize money alone for the league position and stuff like that. But if they don't give him support, then you could understand Eddie Howe questioning, am I being hung out to dry here? Am I being set up to fail? And then, they bring in the Mourinho type manager, the type of manager who wouldn't touch us when we needed it. They keep talking about different phases, don't they? And they look at the Manchester City model, how Hughes was replaced and then that person was replaced until they actually got there. But my personal opinion is I think Eddie Howe's got enough about him to go right the way through the gears, through the phases, and build a title-winning squad. And he's got a work ethic that is unsurpassed, I think. If you look at other managers, I think he's as committed to Newcastle as any other manager we've had for a long, long time. And I think sometimes, although he's technically astute, he gets called being tactically naive because he doesn't have the players at his disposal that other players do have. He doesn't have a De Bruyne to come off the bench to change a game like that. So for me, I think he's earned the right. He deserves every bit of backing that we can give him. And I hope the board give him the backing as well, starting with the next couple of days and saying, right, what area do you need to improve first, and go out and do all they can. And if they do sell Miggy, let's say they get 20 million from him, that will release a lot of money to go and buy a quality midfielder. And if you look, we got Gordon this time last year, and we've got the benefit of him now, but he struggled initially, didn't he, when he first got here with the fitness and stuff like that. So getting someone like me, Premiership ready, like Morgan Gibbs-White, getting someone like that in, I don't think his fitness is in question, is it? So then it's just a case of tactically, this is what we expect from you. And if you've got someone like him and Isak and Gordon powering up front, that can change games in an instant. So back Eddie Howe, and if they don't, then that's going to just start the circus in the media all of a sudden. We'll be linked with any manager who's out of a job and some that are in a job. I'm surprised we won't be linked with Klopp yet, because he seems to talk about us enough, so he must love us.
Yeah, maybe an international job for Klopp on the horizon after the Euros. Lots of movers and shakers tend to move in and around international tournaments. We'll wait and see. I think the Lewis Hall loan probably has a trigger in January with so many minutes. We don't want to trigger until the summer. Also, look at Gordon last year. It was terrible. Hall needs time, says the clone lad. Richie again says, regarding Hall, compare him to Gordon. Hardly played last season. Trained hard, then had a full pre-season and now fit enough for how wanting to play. Hall has had 5 full months, so still getting used to obviously the training regime, which I would agree. It seems the same with most clubs. All the problems going on are always above manager, whether that be us or Everton or Man United. Good point, David. Carlisle Tuna says Eddie's not under pressure, but as I said, he is realistic. Give him 10 years in the job, he'll do what he did at Bournemouth, but on a larger scale. And Danny says sacking Eddie would hurt just as much as when they sacked Sir Bobby. Shooting Bambi. Neil Calvert says, I might add, I don't want Eddie to go. I think when he was a full-strength squad to choose from, we can beat anyone. Villa, PSG, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, ×2, etc., etc. And Anthony says, back how, get through this season as high as we can finish, strengthening in the summer, and we will be a real threat for the title next season. Plenty of confidence coming in from Anthony on that score. Aston Villa coming up on Tuesday night, lads. So we'll look at that, because obviously it's the fans forum tomorrow. You guys won't be back until Wednesday night. And those of you who like the away day guide, Scunny Mag has stuck it up on Friday. He reviewed it on Friday, and we've also talked about it and stuck it up as a separate video. But yeah, Aston Villa away. It's another televised game for Newcastle United as well, I believe, isn't it? Yes, 8:15.
They're all televised over here, so.
Yeah. Well, it is for you guys, yeah. Yeah, Tuesday night, 8:15 kickoff time. It's on TNT Sports. And from our perspective, since 2013, where we won 2-1, Newcastle have made 6 Premier League visits to Aston Villa without scoring, playing out successive 0-0 draws before losing each of the next 4. The last Newcastle player to score at Villa Park was Johan Gouffran in that game in 2013. Since then, we've played out 557 minutes of Premier League football without scoring. Not included in that sequence is the 1-1 draw in the 2016-17 Championship season, when our goal was an own goal, registered by one of the Villa players, Villan. The team, well, we don't know. It didn't look as if anyone had been injured yesterday. There are players on the verge of comebacks. We know Harvey Barnes isn't too far away. Shouldn't be too far away either is Willock and Callum Wilson. One would imagine at least one of those players should be available on Tuesday night. Bruno, as we know, is 1 yellow card away from reaching the magic figure of 10, which will trigger a 2-match ban. He avoided a yellow card yesterday, of course. Anthony Gordon's 2 bookings short of suffering the same fate. As for Villa, Traore is on AFCON duty for Burkina Faso. And ahead of our visit, Unai Emery's side travelled to Stamford Bridge for their FA Cup 4th round tie against Chelsea on Friday night. And on the home ground this season, Aston Villa are unbeaten in all 10 Premier League games. They've won 9 and drawn 1. 29 goals scored at home is the highest total in the Premier League. 8 conceded is the joint lowest with Liverpool. The referee for the game is John Brooks, which is the second game in charge of a Newcastle fixture. The first one was the 2-1 defeat against Liverpool at St James's Park when he sent off Van Dijk. Brooks was also in charge of our visit to Aston Villa last season. And on VAR is Andy Madeley. As I've already mentioned, it is live on TNT Sports. If you want to watch it on a big screen in Newcastle, Freight in Newcastle behind High Bridge will be broadcasting it. Pumphrey's in the Big Market and the Dog and Parrot on Clayton Street West. Newcastle looking to end a run of 4 successive Premier League defeats. The last time they were beaten 5 times in the top flight was in December 2020, January 2021. Away from St James's Park, of course, we haven't done so well. Eddie Howe's side have lost each of the last 5 Premier League games. That's since the 2-2 draw at Wolves in October. And they've not lost 6 in a row on the road since 2015-2016. So that's all you need to know about this game. Yeah, this is a big game for us. For more than one reason. Obviously, it's time to stop the rot in the league. It's time to stop the rot on the road. And beating Aston Villa will put us back in contention. You know, we're only 6 points off European spot, but this is important. This is a team above us. If we've still got aspirations to finish in Europe this season, we need to get something at Villa. A draw wouldn't be a disaster, but a win would be fantastic, Mitch.
Yeah. And there's lots of records there to be broken. That's what records are all there for. They're all there to be broken. Villa used to be a happy hunting ground for us prior to the previous 7 years. We used to always seem to come away with a decent result there, other than the relegation season under Ashley. But, you know, I seem to remember Shearer scoring more than a handful of goals there in his time. We've just got to approach it with the right attitude. And we'll approach it with the right attitude, we can beat anybody on Monday. I do have concerns that they'll overrun in midfield and pull Dan Burn all over the place again, which is what they did last season. But hopefully Eddie's learned from that. You're right. I would take a draw. I wouldn't be upset with a draw, but a win would make a statement. And like I said, there's lots of records there to be broken. We might just be the team to do.
Okay, Stu.
Certainly due a win. Certainly due a win. And if you look at all the stats that you read out there, it points to a heavy defeat, nothing more, nothing less. The best home record in the league, highest scorers, they don't concede much. We've mentioned earlier in the show, or it was mentioned about our lack of pace in the middle. You know, could we get overrun? And you start getting all pessimistic and defeatist, and this is when Newcastle end up going up and getting a win. I think last night's game will give them a lot of confidence, and I think you might have to tweak the change, because if they've got someone with the pace of Diaby up against Dan Burn, and Dan Burn hasn't got cover, you know, it could be dangerous. But I'm sure the staff know what they're doing with that, and they'll make the tweaks that they can make. I'm sure they will make them. I'd be surprised if it's the same starting 11. I think it'll be an entertaining game, and 2-2. We'll go for a Desmond.
You're going for a 2-2. Have you got the dice, Mitch, just out of interest?
Don't.
I didn't think you would.
Because
Yeah, but you wouldn't have expected to be asked about that. Well, give us your
No.
prediction in this game. I'm going to go for a draw. I think there'll be goals, and I'm going to go for 2-2 as well.
I'll go 1-1.
Okay, there we go. That covers the Villa game. Jimmy Watts says, with the meeting coming up in February about FFP, do you think FFP will be changed? I mean, February, Richard Masters is calling people in to discuss the profit and sustainability. Do you think there'll be big changes? And if there are going to be changes, Mitch, what would you suggest there might be?
Big changes, no. Maybe these minor tweaks to reflect inflation and the change in the market. Maybe. But it won't be big changes, because big changes helps us. And there are certain sides who won't want to see that. And as he clearly mentioned in his chat in Parliament, you know, that he sees some teams as big clubs and some teams as small clubs. And his own words trip him up time and time again. What an absolutely ineffective leader that man is. He's not fit for purpose, and he's not in the right role. Disrespectful to two clubs who've got a long history in English football, who've won European trophies and more. And yet he sees them as a small club, and I wonder where that mindset comes from and who has aided him to come to that conclusion. And therefore, they won't make big changes, because big changes are helpless. Small changes, yeah, tweaks, I think is what you'd say. And some of that will be inflationary, and some of that will be reflective of the market. A market whereby, for example, I know people are saying about 25 billion for Hall. I actually think that's not a bad price, given his age and his nationality. When Chelsea are demanding the start of the bidding for Broja at 80 million, which is outrageous. Saying that they want that amount of money for a player who's, still went 5 years in the Premier League perspective. The amount of money they want for Conor Gallagher, that's being bounced around, I think, 60 million. That gives you an idea what the market's like, and that's why certainly some FFP tweaks would be reasonable. Certainly wouldn't be unreasonable. But however, they're also then going to put themselves in an interesting position with ongoing potential sustainability cases against other clubs. When do these rules kick in? When do these changes apply from? And what happens if somebody fails the year before the new rules come in? It starts to get a little bit messy. So that's why I don't see big changes. The only big change for me that they could do is scrap it all together, and that ain't going to happen.
Stu, do you agree with Mitch, or do you think there might be some changes like forthcoming that would be of benefit to Newcastle?
Well, it wouldn't just be Newcastle; it would benefit other clubs, because
of course
it's what's happening. Look at Everton; they spent more money than most over a period of time. That's why they're getting caught out now. But it's how they spend it. So the fear factor with, I think, Newcastle give other teams is it's how well we're structured. And if you look at the signings that we have made, there hasn't been many mistakes. So it's not right having the money; it's what you do with it. And we've proven that we will spend it wisely and we'll recruit correctly. where others are more, shall we say, frivolous with it. So it's important that it's now getting questions, not just by Newcastle. It's not bitter Newcastle fans who are just moaning because they've got all this money and they can't spend it. It's been challenged by other sets of supporters now. And it becomes a bad look for the Premier League, where using the loft and the ladders or the drawbridge has been pulled up. You shouldn't be penalised for trying to compete. Otherwise it becomes a two-tier league. Well, it is already in all but name, but you have to. They can't keep hiding behind the guise of we are trying to protect the clubs from going bankrupt. If people can spend the money, they should be allowed to spend the money. It's like you buy a business. Why shouldn't you? If you've got the funds, why shouldn't you be able to improve it? But that's for another time. But me, I think there'll be changes, and I don't think it'll be Newcastle leading the charge to make the changes. I think it'll be the TV companies, because it reflects on them when there's not money getting spent, which means they're not attracting the best players because they can't afford to buy the best players. Even if they can afford to buy them, they're not able to get them because of financial fair play. It then reflects on the Premier League as a whole, as the package that's sold as the best league in the world worldwide. So I think there'll be pressure on Masters from that way, but they'll have to do it in a way where he will appease his bigger clubs, the ones that selected them, but they need help. Man United can't spend money. Arsenal can't spend money. So I'm sure they'll bring a rule in. You'll be able to spend X amount of your generated income. And they'll do it that way because they're still generating more money. And it'll be a way of like throwing a few crumbs off the top table for people like us and Aston Villa and the West Hams and the likes who are mountain challengers. I think, yeah, okay, we'll be able to give you an extra 50 million to spend, but that means Tottenham and Arsenal can spend an extra 100 million. So the gap will still be there until, as Mitch quite rightly says, until it's scrapped totally, which I don't think will happen. But any improvement is going to benefit us more than most because we can cash in straight away. And they have to do it, because if not, you're in a situation where the Premier League, the bubble will not burst, but it stops growing. And then it becomes less attractive. And then that's when the TV companies can say, we'll give you less money now. You can't really claim you're the best league in the world if you can't attract the elite players because you won't let your clubs buy them. So there'll be a lot of pressure, and I'm sure there will be changes that will benefit all clubs, but it'll still favour the ones at the top.
Question there from Richie. We'll finish up on that. He says, quick one for the lads. After Friday's ruling in Belgium regarding the VAR replay, do you think Newcastle could be tempted to do a financial challenge on UEFA after PSG Varsical decision? They're not only changed the result, but the money side of things. Mitch, would Newcastle be tempted, do you think?
We've certainly got the money to pay for lawyers. Would we be tempted to do it? Don't know. If they felt there was mileage of getting, because I think the Belgian decision will end up back in court under appeal, and they'll end up being settled in 2 years' time because the sporting integrity has got to be kept with the competition. Then it'll end up in some sort of financial compensation, a bit like Sheffield United and West Ham and the transfer thing that they had. Does that then open the door for us to go to UEFA and say, hey, because of this decision, we didn't qualify, we owed some money? Well, then who pays that money? Is it UEFA? Is it PSG? It certainly would help FFP if we want to find inventive ways to get money in the bank, but it would take a couple of years. So, and you've got to say, is it worth it? Is it worth looking like we can't accept the decision? Because that's how it'll be painted. Look at these Saudis. It's different when Jurgen Klopp was talking about replays for Tottenham against Liverpool, but that's another matter. We will perennially be made out to be the bad guys because of who our owners are. And therefore, is it worth it going forward? We just take it on the chin and move on. That to me is the sporting answer. Could we do it? Yeah, absolutely. We've got the money to pay for it. Some very damn good lawyers. I'm quite sure could make a very good case out of it, but it would end up in a financial recompensation of some description. But again, who pays the money? How do you get the money? When do you get the money? Can of worms.
Stu?
I think they'll end up eventually they will. At the moment, I think the owners are more about creating a better image, call it sports washing, whatever you want, or enhancing their reputation. They're doing everything carefully. They're touring the company line. They don't want to be seen to be the ones rocking the boat because the outcry would be massive. But as Mitch said there about Klopp, he's allowed to challenge things, and Arteta especially, where it was ridiculously challenging and making accusations about injustice and stuff like that. But I think if Newcastle would do it, then there would be a 6-page special on why Newcastle owners shouldn't be in charge. Never mind a 3-page pullout, there'll be a 6-page special. But if it gets to this stage where it becomes too obvious, then again that tarnishes the reputation of the league. But that's when the big guns will come out. And as Mitch quite rightly said, they've got enough funds to pay for everything. There's been decisions against us, not just this season, not just last season, but every season we've played football. There's been decisions against us, but sometimes we can be doused in a hint of paranoia by saying, it's because of our owners. There's been some really bad decisions against other teams as well. The PSG one was a bit worrying considering who was in the stadium, and then there was a chat, and then come and look at this screen and they only showed one sign, one video of it that didn't show the other side, where the rules would state it wasn't a handball. Some you get, some you don't, and I think we have to be man enough, adult enough to accept that. And once we get to where we will get to, you'll find that more decisions will go in our favour anyway. It's the nature of the beast, and at the moment we're swimming uphill, for want of a better phrase. We're swimming uphill, but it'll plateau off, and then it'll be free sailing after that.
Great show, great hour. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Good luck with your business appointments this week, Stu, and we'll look forward to seeing you and Mitch on Wednesday. I'm back tomorrow night, slightly later time of 7 o'clock with the Fans Forum. Until then, take care. Have a good Sunday. See you, lads.
Cheers, everyone. All right, Mitch.